So here I will give you a very brief explanation of setting up Raspberry Pi in normal method. You can download this presentation from the link given in the description section of this video and study in detail. For this example, I am using a Raspberry Pi 4 model, but you can use any similar models like Raspberry Pi 3, Raspberry Pi 3B, Raspberry Pi 4B, like any similar models you can use for this setup. So basically there are two methods available to set up a new Raspberry Pi. One is the normal mode and second one is the headless method. In this session we are going to discuss about the normal method. So for the normal method, the external peripherals we need are a keyboard, a mouse, a monitor or TV as an output device, and an HDMI cable to connect to the monitor from the Raspberry Pi. And second one is the headless method. I am not going to discuss more about the headless method in this session because there is another presentation exclusively for the headless method. So regardless of which method you use, we need a power source and a micro SD card. So you need these two things also for setting up our Raspberry Pi. So let's start using the normal method. So if your laptop does not contain a built-in micro SD card reader, then you have to use an external card reader like the one shown in this image below. And we need a micro SD card like I have discussed in the previous slide. So first we need to insert the micro SD card in the card reader and the PC will detect it. And you have to download one software, that is the Raspberry Pi Imager utility first. So you can download that from this link given in this slide. So after downloading the small utility, you have to double click and run it. So this is the Raspberry Pi Imager utility. And in the Raspberry Pi Imager utility, first you have to choose the operating system. And you can first choose the Raspberry Pi OS 32-bit operating system. And after that you have to choose the micro SD card by clicking the storage button. And after that you have to click this settings icon button for giving some parameters. So settings contains mainly these options. You have to set a host name, you have to enable SSH, and you have to set a username and password, and you have to configure wireless LAN. And this is the username and password that we will use to log into the Raspberry Pi OS. So you can read all these things in detail after downloading the presentation file. So this is how we can set up the settings section of the Raspberry Pi Imager utility. You can see this in detail. So after setting all those things, you can click the right button. And it will ask for a confirmation and you can confirm it by giving the yes button. And it will take few minutes to complete the write operation. And once the write is complete, you will get a message like this to remove the micro SD card. And you can remove the micro SD card and click the continue button. You can see this animation video file to understand that operation in detail. So after removing the micro SD card from the SD card reader, you can put it in the Raspberry Pi. So when you put the micro SD card in the Raspberry Pi, please be very careful, because you should not insert the micro SD card in a wrong direction, because it will damage the connectors of the Raspberry Pi. So please refer to this video very carefully and only insert the micro SD card like the one I have shown in this video. After that, in the two USB ports, you can connect a keyboard and a mouse. After that, you need to connect a HDMI cable to the monitor and then to the Raspberry Pi. All those things you can see in detail after downloading this presentation file. One end of the HDMI cable goes to the Raspberry Pi and the other end goes to the monitor. The Raspberry Pi has no particular on-off switch in the Raspberry Pi board. So as soon as you connect the power supply and turn it on, the Pi will start its booting process. If everything is fine, you will see some boot screen messages on a black screen for a few seconds in the monitor. So after a few minutes, you will see the Raspberry Pi desktop. And that is if everything is correct and the booting process is completed successfully. You will get a pop-up dialog box for configuring various settings like country, language, time zone, Wi-Fi, etc. Also, if there are any updates available, it will download and install. So with this, the setup is complete and you will get a message like this. So this is how we will set up our Raspberry Pi in normal method. So in next session, we will see how we can set up our Raspberry Pi in a headless method. Actually, for doing IoT projects, we will use the headless method, as in headless method there is no need to connect any external keyboard, mouse or monitor. So that is a very convenient method for doing projects with Raspberry Pi. We can see in the next session.